This episode is brought to you by Microsoft Azure. Turn your ideas into reality with an Azure free account. Get everything you need to develop apps across cloud and hybrid environments, scale workloads, create cloud-connected mobile experiences, and so much more. Discover what you can create with popular services free for 12 months. Learn more at azure.com. That's AZURE.com. And sign up for a free account to start building in the cloud today.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Red, your lunchtime catch-up on all things Liverpool FC on a Thursday, on which Federico Chiesa should become a Liverpool player, all going well. The second part of his medical, I believe, is undergoing right now. Hopefully, there's no issues. Hopefully, everything gets done. And hopefully, he's not the last one in. We have what I'm going to class as tenuous links to Santiago Hezze developing today. Now, a Greek football specialist called Stefan Kunturo is saying that Liverpool have identified Santiago Hezze as a potential midfield target. He said it would take a lot for Olympiacos to allow him to leave, but that's by Greek terms, so that could be 20 million, 25 million. Hezze is a really interesting player. He would fit really well into what Arne wants from that number 6, I think. He was phenomenal for Olympiacos last year in their Conference League run. And at 22, turns 23 a little bit later in the year. I think he'd be a really smart buy because he comes in and fixes an issue for us. And even if he's not who you want there in the long term, at the price point, you'd happily have him become a squad player thereafter if he doesn't take off the way you think he can. A lot of this as well, there's that Stephen Conturo saying that Liverpool have identified him. I assume he's spoken to some people. I assume. There's also the fact that the plane that brought Chiesa to Liverpool subsequently brought Besetic to Salzburg and is scheduled to go to Athens. Now, it doesn't land in Athens until tomorrow. But if we can agree a deal, a medical can be done in Athens. We don't just use one plane. The medical staff could fly over there, do the medical there, and then all come back together. He doesn't need to travel for the medical. And at this point in a window, last 2 days, it's rare that players would travel for a medical. They would generally do the medical on site. And therefore, there's more than enough time to get that deal done if he's the one we want. Now, we had him as a suggestion on the transfer committee pod earlier this summer. I know Dan wasn't massively keen because the data size was quite small. But I do think he mentioned that the data from Greece isn't great anyway. So in general, maybe we're missing something there. Now, I really like him based on the eye test. I think he's strong defensively, he covers a ton of ground, and he's good with the ball. And Pranev, if you know Pranev on Twitter, he's written some really good stuff. And he wrote a piece in January of 2023 about Santiago Hezze, who he described as a defensive monster. I'm going to retweet that piece now on my Twitter, so if you want to go and read it there. At the time, he was 21, playing for Hurricane in Argentina, and definitely a player to keep an eye on. Once again, he isn't a goal-scoring midfielder. He's something that Liverpool desperately needs right now. Let's look at some of the traits that make him an ideal fit. So, first things first, an incredible ball winner. Over the past week, I've watched a lot of defensive midfielders and looked at the statistics. Hezze is a standout, not because of his statistics, but because of how easy he makes it look. He provides his backline with much-needed security. He averages 9.36 recoveries per 90. So in the middle third, he's averaging 5.27. And in his own defensive third, he's averaging 3.4 per 90. Now, he's not much of a final third ball winner, but you're not asking him to be that. He's one of the best at winning the ball back in the middle of the pitch, and obviously also good at winning it back in his final third. He's also very good in the air. Very, very good in the air. Wins, this again is based on when he was at Hurricane. He was winning 70% of his aerials. So that's really good. Contesting more aerials than Fabinho and winning more aerials than Fabinho. Funnily enough, contesting more than Thiago, actually winning more than Thiago was contesting, but winning them at a slightly lower rate. But Thiago was unbelievably good in the air. Tackles and interceptions, he's absolutely stellar. Really, really good. 5.4 tackles and interceptions per 90. Always available. Doesn't miss games. And then the passing. Now, his passing is good. I wouldn't call it elite, and neither does Pranev. But he does make a lot of vertical passes. He does like to play the ball forward. And that's good. That's exactly what we're looking for. 4.76 passes into the final third per 90. And again, you're talking about a player at Hurricane, not a team that was dominating the ball. Quick to receive and release the ball, a wide variety of passes, does well under pressure, recovers and quickly progresses the ball with his passing, and able to retain possession. So, all things considered, he does fit the mold. Again, I've retweeted that article on my Twitter page if you want to go and have a look at it. As I said, this is not just his name's been linked, so I'm being positive about him. I brought him up on the transfer committee pod. I tweeted his name on a list in May, which was, I think I had him number 6 on my list, maybe. Let's have a look. When did I tweet that list? Yeah, 17th of May I tweeted out this list. So I had... Now, bear in mind, this is before we knew Liverpool were looking for kind of a playmaking or a progressive number 6. So I did have Ederson and Ugarte ahead of him, but they were no longer options once it became clear what we were looking at, which gave us Varela, Zubimendi, Hjulman, and then Hezze would have been next. Now, bear in mind, of course, Doucouré and Kamara would have been on that top part of the list if they hadn't been injured. But I think he's beyond the prospect group. Like, as prospects, I had people like Le Pennant going to do it, Ezekiel Fernandez, Eric Martel, Ende Eshime, Cardoso, Mandela Keita. I also had Angelo Stilla there because you could try and convert him. I had Mats Wiefer there because Arne knew him. But that was a list of, well, yeah, maybe. Hezze was definitely in my yes camp, no question. And like I say, he was really, really good last year for Olympiacos in the Conference League. Admittedly, it's not the best standard, but ultimately, he was vital in them winning that competition. He played 50 games last season, which is a good marker. 37 the year before, 37 the year before, 32 the year before that, 13 and 5 the 2 previous seasons, but he was, a very, very young player at that point. He was 18 breaking into the team. He is Argentinian, obviously, but he is eligible to play for Poland because he's got a Polish grandmother and has a Polish passport. He's also able to play for Syria. I believe his mother is of Syrian descent. I think that's what it is. So his uncle is Antonio Mohammed. I think his mother is the brother of Antonio Mohammed, who's a Argentinian Syrian. I think their parents are Syrian, moved to Argentina. So I think that's the Syrian link. He's obviously not going to play for Syria, but he could play for Poland. Obviously, he could play for Argentina as well by birth. We'll see what he does. But I really like him. Like, I would prefer Varela. There's no doubt for me. I would prefer Varela. He's been my number one all summer. But Hezze'd be a really good get. He'd be a really good get, and he would fix the issue for us this season. And could you throw in Costas to make that deal work and free up a spot defensively for us to go and get that left-sided defender that we desperately need? I think that could solve all our problems. Costas goes back to Olympiacos. I think he'd be happy to do it. We get a good defensive midfielder, and then we get that left-sided defender. Now, again, time is short. There's no guarantees we get anything done. But what we know is that they're trying. Is that enough? No, it's not. Like, if we don't get anybody, we should all be fuming. Not pissing our pants, not crying, but we should be fuming. Because they have had all summer. And the Zubimendi thing fell apart weeks ago. So you have had plenty of time here to go and get somebody else. There will be no excuse if they don't land a 6. None at all. I don't want to hear about there wasn't an opportunity in the market. There was. Varela has had a release clause all summer. You could have gone and got him. You could have gone and got Hjulman. He has a release clause as well. Maybe Hjulman isn't the exact profile, because maybe you don't view him as being comfortable enough on the ball. But Varela and Hezze have been sitting there. You could have gone and got them. So if you don't get either of them, then there's no excuse. There really isn't. There's no excuse for not getting the left-sided defender that we need either. Like, oh, players didn't want to leave. Grand. Who cares? Sit them in the academy for 6 months and they'll leave in January. Get the player in now. You've been ruthless all summer. If a player isn't keen on leaving, make them leave. Make them leave. Make them train with the 21s and play with the 21s. Make it clear that they don't have a future at the club. Does it tank their value a little bit? Yeah. But it's not like selling Costas for 12 million or selling him for 8 million is going to change whether or not we can go and get a player. We need to be more ruthless. We have been more ruthless this summer, which has been really good to see. Now, we had an interesting development yesterday when Barcelona, who lost Marc Bernal to a torn ACL, decided to lump themselves into the Stefan Bajcetic sweepstakes. That deal to Salzburg, by all accounts, pretty much done. And they lob in with a loan offer. Then it started to get a bit weird from there, where they were offering a loan with an option to buy and a sell-on clause and a buyback clause and a load of mess. And ultimately, I don't know that they could actually get Stefan and register him, considering it's taken them the better part of a month to register Dani Olmo. But that would be a bad place to send Stefan. Like, if you look at it, they play under Hansi Flick. They're going to play 4-2-3-1. So ultimately, you've got Dani Olmo is probably going to be the 10. Fermin Lopez is another option there, which means everybody else that they have midfield-wise is going to play in a double pivot. So you've got Frankie de Jong, you've got Gavi, you've got Pedri, you've got Marc Casado, and Pablo Torre, again, more of a 10. That's a lot of bodies. At the moment, they're without Gavi and without Frankie. I don't know how much Marc Bernal was going to play once everybody was back anyway. Probably only for the early months of the season. But if Stefan goes there, he might start a few games to begin with. And then what happens when Frankie comes back and Gavi comes back? Because they're definitely in the team. And you'd have to imagine they find a way to get Pedri in the team, even if it's playing him left wing. So then what happens for Stefan? It's not a move that benefits us or him. He won't get enough game time going there, I don't think. And what happens if they break him? Like, take a look at the young players that have come through at Barcelona in recent years or been brought into Barcelona. Ansu Fati, remember when he first broke in, he looked like he was going to be like the next Vinicius Jr. And now they're struggling to find a place to loan him because they overplayed him. He got injured. He missed most of 2 seasons and just hasn't looked the same player since. Remember when Pedri broke through and had that unbelievable season? They brought him in from Las Palmas, but he had that unbelievable 2021 season. And then he went to the Euros, played every minute, and then he went to the Olympics and played at that. And then what happened? He got broken the following season. And while he's been good since, he hasn't been nearly as good, and he's also had more and more injury issues. Remember when Gavi broke in at 17? 2 seasons of just been run into the ground, 47 and 49 games at 17 and then 18. And what happened then? They broke him. He tore his ACL. Now you've got Marc Bernal, who's 17 years of age, torn ACL. And let's not forget Alejandro Balde, one of the most exciting left-backs in the world. Breaks into the team in 21-22, becomes the first-choice left-back in 22-23 at the age of 19, 18 to start the year, turned 19 in the October, plays 44 games. Last season, 28 games, and his hamstring explodes. 28 games by January last season, and his hamstring exploded. Major surgery to repair a hamstring tendon. So you've got Ansu, Gavi, Pedri, Casado, and Balde. Is there one other one? I think that might be it. That's 5 of the most promising young players in the world, all having major surgery by age 20. Bernal a knee, Gavi a knee, Pedri had, I think, meniscus surgery. Ansu had both knees done, and Balde had his hamstring done. And it would make you very, very concerned for someone like Pau Cubarsí, who's 100% going to play like 50 games this season. Last season, bear in mind he's only 17, last season he played 24 games. He doesn't turn 18 until January. So he makes his debut last season on the 18th of January, just before his 17th birthday, and between then and the end of the season plays 24 times. You've Lamine Yamal is another one to be very, very concerned about. He's just turned 17 in the summer. He's already played 54 senior games. He played 50 times last season at 16. And I know he's an incredible talent, but you can't be overplaying young players like this. You're going to break them. Like, that should have been, that group of players, the five that I mentioned, plus Kubarsi and Yamal, that should have been the core of Barcelona for the next 10, 12 years. And instead now, they've all got questionable futures because of their injury issues. Are they going to become the players they could have been? There's a high possibility of Pedri having further knee problems because it's a meniscus injury, and if you ever had one, they can reoccur. There's a very high possibility of Alejandro Balde having further hamstring issues and not being as explosive as he was. I mean, we could also throw in Ronald Araujo, who they've managed really poorly and caused to have a lot of injuries. Now, he's 25, he's a bit older, but he's had a bunch of injuries because they've overplayed him at times when they shouldn't have. And again, another one that would have been part of that long-term future. I mean, there's 8 players, 6 of them from your academy, 2 that you brought in young for peanuts. That's the core of a really, really special team. Gavi, Bernal, and Pedri as a midfield 3 could be your next Xavi, Busquets, and Iniesta. Araujo, Kubarsi, and Balde could be 3/4 of a great defence. You brought Jules Koundé, and there's your defence boxed off. The midfield is boxed off. Yamal and Ansu Fati on the wings, sensational and perfect for balance. You would have needed a 9 and a goalkeeper, and you'd have been in unbelievable shape. And then you look at what happened with Vitor Roque when he went there. And they've treated him dreadfully and now loaned him out. Why would we want to send Stefan Bajcetic there? I know his alpha has come out and said, oh yeah, I'd love him to go there, and he's ready for that. Like, he's not ready for Barcelona. He's not ready for Liverpool. He's not ready for Barcelona. He's ready to go and play at a level, I think, higher than Salzburg. Domestically, obviously they'll play in the Champions League, which is great. But the Austrian league is not good. Like, the Celta Vigo deal would have made a ton of sense. That's the ideal club for him to go to and get 25 starts in La Liga. But 25 starts at a club that the aim is just survival. Not 25 starts at a club like Barcelona, where I actually don't think he'd get 25 starts, but a club like Barcelona where if you don't perform at an elite level and if the results go against you, you're going to get booed mercilessly. And that can have a dreadful effect on young players. And again, their history of breaking people. So I really don't want him going anywhere near Barcelona. I think that's a horrible move for him. I think it's a horrible move for us as well. Because what do we get back? We either get back... we get back one of 3 things. Either a player who's gone there, not played enough, and therefore not developed enough. We get a player who's gone there, been overplayed, and gotten injured. Or we get a fella who's gone there, made 25 starts, and had his head turned. Now, if it was a straight loan with no option, but he came back and said, look, I actually want to go there permanently, then we could nail them to the wall and get a big fee. But if they're putting in an option to buy at like 30 million, I'd be worried about how that would look next year. Because if he does go there and does really well, 30 million would be undervalued. If he just goes there and does badly, they're not going to take that option up. So it just doesn't make sense for us at all to do that. What else? This is Anfield. What have you got for us? Federico Chiesa, Champions League draw, who Liverpool can play and how it works. We are in pot 1. I think basically we play, is it 8 games? So we'll play 2 from pot 1, 2 from pot 2, 2 from pot 3, and 2 from pot 4. Myself and Carl picked out the teams we'd like to see us play against on the Scouted we recorded today. There's a piece about Trent where he says, "Don't comply, you don't play." Trent Alexander-Arnold details one simple Arne Slot rule, where Federico Chiesa ranks among Liverpool's fastest players post-injury. Gigi Buffon considered retirement after facing unbelievable Chiesa. Mo Salah offers update on Liverpool contract. I feel like this is getting kind of twisted for what he actually said. I think he was saying he's not worrying about the contract. Like, Mo speaks good English, but English is not his first language. And I think he was saying, I've got 1 year left. I've come to enjoy it. I'm not thinking about the contract. Let's just get on with the year. Let's not worry. And people have kind of taken that as, oh, he's leaving. He didn't say that. He didn't say that at all. He just said he wasn't worried about it. He wasn't thinking about it. He just wanted to play and have fun. So take him at his word and stop twisting it to suit some agenda. Chiesa's top speed, 36.2 kilometers per hour was his top speed last season. His previous top speed pre-injury was 37 kilometers per hour. So Szoboszlai last year, 36.76. Darwin, 36.5. Diaz's top speed is actually below, or that we've seen in games, is below Chiesa's. Mo in his prime was 36.6. I'd say now he's probably in the 35 region. Let's just hope this one gets done. Let's just hope this one gets done and gets across the line. It's done. It's done. The club website are starting the tease. We've got a picture of him in the kit, walking away from the camera. It's dimly lit. Yeah, that is done. Federico Chiesa is a red. Medical passed. Thing of beauty. Joy forever. That'll do. That'll do. Let's go get a couple more. Let's go get a couple more. Richard Hughes, you did a great job on this one. You need to do a couple more, son. This is a 5 out of 10 window as things stands now. We've got 2 really good buys at great prices. We've sold really well. I like that we've loaned a bunch of players. I like that we've been ruthless and trimmed down the squad. I like that the young players who aren't ready for the first team are not going to be forced into the first team. They've gone out on loan to get games, and they'll thrive. But we need our 2 big needs filled. We need our 2 big needs filled. It's as simple as that. So the window ends tomorrow. There's still plenty of time. Most medicals will not take as long as Chiesa's. Obviously, he had a torn ACL a couple of years ago. So that was obviously going to be something that we were very, very focused on and probably took quite a bit of time, because we all remember that the Fekir deal fell apart because he'd had a torn ACL, and the way his surgery was done, I think there was a quicker recovery from it, but a higher chance of reoccurrence, whereas it looks like Chiesa's is all good. But yeah, look, 2 good signings, good sales, good loans, but ultimately we came into this window with 2 massive needs, and neither of them have been addressed yet. Now, if you go and get Santiago Hezze, that will address one of them. It might not be the name that some people want, but it's a really good buy. He's a really good player. And he's only 22. He's got eons of room for growth. Tons of potential. And like I said, worst case scenario, he becomes a squad player for you, a really good squad player for you, and you can still go and get your A-list number 6 in January or next summer. If Boubacar Kamara has a great year when he comes back, you can go and get him. If Czech Doucouré does really well this year coming off the Achilles, you could go and get him. If, for whatever reason, one of Camavinga or Tchouaméni becomes available at Real, you can go and get Camavinga or Tchouaméni. If Chelsea decide we need to sell Lavia or Caicedo, you could go and get one of them if you decided that's what you wanted to do. Signing Hezze for 25 million is not going to preclude you from doing that. So go and get something done. And get it done quickly. Look, ideally he comes in, he's incredible, and we don't need to address it again. That's the ideal. But, you would temper things a little bit. It's a big jump coming from Greece to the Premier League. But look, Costas came over and was absolutely fine. And Hezze's a more talented player than Costas. Hezze's a better player as a DM than Costas is the left back. Costas is a good left back. Hezze's a very good defensive midfielder. And he's a monster off the ball. Like, he's not quite Ugarte, but he might be like Ederson level off the ball. But he's better on the ball. More progressive. More comfortable taking under pressure. The Tyler Morton bid was obviously rejected. You could maybe send Tyler Morton to Olympiacos on loan for a year if you didn't want to let them have Costas, or Costas wasn't someone they wanted. You could maybe give them Morton for a year on loan. Be a good jump for him. Get to play European football. Get to live in Greece for a year. Experience the good life. Imagine playing, with all due respect, so I've been to both places. There's lovely people in both places. But imagine playing in Blackburn and then Hull and then getting to go and live in Athens. You feel like life was going fairly well. You really would. Rains all the time in Hull. They don't know what rain is in Athens. AnfieldIndex.com. Let's have a look and see what the latest is. I'll leave it to yourselves to check out Liverpool.com, Anfield Watch, and Dave O.C. Miguel Delaney says we're not rushing into a defensive deal because we like Mark Guehi. I'm not really sure that there's much in Mark Guehi for us. Like, he's a really good centre-back, don't get me wrong. But he's just not at all the profile of centre-back that we buy. Like, he's a flat 6 foot. We buy people 6'3" and over. He wins around 60% of his aerials, maybe a little bit less, sometimes a little bit more. We buy fellas that win over 70% of their aerials. So, yeah, no, I don't see it. I genuinely don't see it. There's a piece on Trent, a piece on Chiesa, a piece on Lowe, a piece on Alessandro Bastoni. There are reports from Italy that there is some feeling that we might be about to go big and try and get him. Don't know if there's any truth to it. Probably isn't, but you never know. Podcast-wise, there's the new Under Pressure, which I mentioned yesterday. There's the latest David Lynch podcast, where he's talking about Federico Chiesa. And there is 2 new Media Matters pods. So there's the Stat Me Up pod, which is Dave Davis and Ben Boxak, so do give that a listen. And then there is Lewis Steele of The Mail joining Dave to have a chat about what's going on at the moment. Look, ultimately, the journalists for the moment don't really have a huge amount of insight. That's been very clear all summer. But Lewis is good at what he does, so give that a watch. Or give that a listen, rather, when you can. It appears that we will be announcing Federico Chiesa in 1 minute. So after you've heard this, we've also, long before you've heard this, I should say, we've also today recorded the latest scouted, so it'll be out either today or tomorrow. There's a whole bunch coming today and tomorrow, and then obviously we'll have post-match Raw after the United game on Sunday. So that's it from me today, folks. I'll be back tomorrow, hopefully discussing a deal agreed for somebody, something, anything, whatever. See you then. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.